Hey there, welcome to episode 145 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I'm your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 1:28 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here in the greater Vegas area on Tuesday, November 25, 2025. That's a lot of 25s. We normally publish on Tuesdays, usually earlier in the day, but that's okay. We're good. It's a holiday week. The Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program is all about our Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Again, I am the managing director. We have been a thing since June of 2022 when we rebooted Code for Vegas as the Code for Vegas Foundation. Then we renamed ourselves because innovation can take many forms. Not everything is code. So this audio program is about all of the things. We are going to try to move more towards initiative focus, the things that we are working on, especially as they make progress, rather than talking about aspiration and plans. Those will still enter the conversation now and then. We would hopefully, for 2026, hopefully get back into an occasional guest mode, perhaps, have some conversations with other people in other places, whether in Vegas or beyond. But all that said, our purpose, if you're curious, is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. We can do that in many ways, and it's those sorts of things we talk about, and it's the outcomes of those sorts of things that we will aim to talk about more with this audio program. So on that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary, which I believe, yes, is one longer sentence that I will read to you. And then there are some links. There are two of the usual links. They're links to our homepages, plural. And then there are two links for today's episode, total of 4. Not too bad. This episode will probably be a little bit brief because, hey, it's a holiday week. Come on. You're not spending time listening to podcasts, and so I don't want to spend too much time producing this one. So let's get to it so we can get on with our preparations for the festivities, the victuals, and so on. Summary of today's episode. This is a holiday week at the end of the calendar year in some part of the civic volunteer winter as we transition into more accomplishment-centric audio programs over aspirational audio programs, which may be produced now and then. Maybe some interviews and other discussions on occasion. Hey, that sounds familiar. Let us take a moment to talk about STEAM and more, which is the title and topic of today's episode. It's 1:31 Pacific Standard Time. Did I mention the time zone? I'm trying to do that more frequently so that people have a better sense of when programs are produced. The links for today's episode, as I mentioned, there are 4 of them. Innovate for Vegas activity homepage, activities, volunteers, the things that we're working on and who's working on them. Innovate for Vegas. That's Innovate, F-O-R, Vegas. No space, no punctuation. Innovateforvegas.org. That was our original homepage was codeforvegas.org. Innovateforvegas.org. Our site is hosted as GitHub pages on the GitHub website. It's close to our various initiative repositories and whatnot. We use GitHub user accounts to keep track of participation for purposes of attribution and so on. Innovateforvegas.org. So it's that part of our website collection is aimed more towards the day-to-day, the people making our stuff work, our stuff go. We could always use more of those people. So innovateforvegas.org. Then there's the Innovate for Vegas Foundation website. Innovate for Vegas, no spaces, Innovate, F-O-R, Vegas, period, dot. Foundation, spelled out, F-O-U-N-D-A-T-I-O-N. That's the business side. Remember, we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation. If I didn't mention that, I don't think I mentioned it this time. I usually point that out, that we are an actual company. We are a Nevada nonprofit, so we're not raking in the dough by any means, but we are an actual corporation. So we have a board of directors. We have governance. We have bylaws. We have, what else? Policies. We have contributor policy. We have our code of conduct and so on. So from a business standpoint, innovateforvegas.foundation is where you'll find that boring stuff. It probably looks a lot like innovateforvegas.org because we kind of forked them. So innovateforvegas.foundation looks very much like innovateforvegas.org with a few changes. More to come. It's not a super high priority, but we'd rather talk to people about what we're up to, but got to have a web presence. It is the 21st century after all. STEAM. There's a Wikipedia page about STEAM education. It's kind of interesting. If you're not familiar, it's a good place to start. As I always say about Wikipedia, it's a good place to start a journey of learning. It's not always the best place to end it, the journey. So we'll talk about STEAM today. Learning styles, a little tangential exploration. But STEAM is about education. So learning styles, how do we learn about these things? Learning styles sometimes will come up as a myth. There's no such thing as learning styles. I disagree. Maybe you do too. I thought I'd put it in there. Also, a Wikipedia page, also a good place to begin your learning style learnings. So on that note, let's begin. STEM meets art and reading, maybe. A long time ago, there was STEM, and there is still STEM, which is good. I guess by way of disclaimer, I have an engineering degree from Harvey Mudd College, so I was always big on the E part. And but the strange part is the E includes the M. Engineering is a lot of mathematics, but I guess they are not necessarily linked at the hip, so there is the E and the M. And then science, certainly Harvey Mudd had physics, chemistry, biology, probably some other science that I'm forgetting. And then technology is pervasive, so a STEM education, honestly, I think they kind of filled out the engineering, technology, science, math, the Mets, if you're a Mets fan. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, you can list a bunch of different facets of all these things, and you could probably come up with even more interesting words. These are fairly generic. They overlap nicely, so yeah, that all works. It's a quick way to group together those the science, technology, engineering, and math, which probably finds argument now and then about the selection of those four areas, as I was intimating. So I'm sure some people would say technology, that's too broad. Engineering is also very broad. Hang on a second. Okay, I had to pause there. A broom accident. A broom fell over. Who knew? So yeah, I'm sure people will argue that these are too generic, or we should add in, well, okay, that's what happened with STEAM, I think. At some point, someone realized that art and reading, I'll have more to say about the reading part, art and reading belong in there, but rather than stream, STREAM, they went with STEAM. I have no idea who they are, by the way, or were, but STEAM it is. And I have to appreciate drawing a second line in the sand like this. It is sort of like the Code for Vegas to Innovate for Vegas transition from a couple of years ago. Here it was adding the A. Basically, you don't want to send people away with the sign above the door, right? STEM. Oh, I'm not really into any of those four things, so I guess I'm not welcome here, as was the case for I'm not a coder scenarios when we were first getting rebooted almost 4 years ago. No, 2022. 3 years ago, we're in our fourth year. There you go. Math. Small m. Let's pretend reading is not called out. I have to admit, I did not know that reading was in there. This is according to the Wikipedia page, so who knows, right? I am going to pretend that it isn't in there because reading and writing are too fundamental to call out only one of them in this context. So yeah, let's pretend reading is not called out without writing and get on with this episode then, which is intentionally brief given the holiday week and all. So quick rundown on learning styles. This is not an episode about learning styles. I read somewhere, or I have read multiple times somewheres, that learning styles are a lie, that there is not such a thing as learning styles, that we all learn the same way. It's not, there's no magic. There's no, they're just basically trying to debunk the whole notion. I think you can look around and see that this is at least anecdotally true, that there is actual learning styles. I do not agree with the notion that there isn't or aren't learning styles. Some people learn by reading and writing And some learn by doing. That is a course division. There are finer points, and I'm fairly certain this is not universal. I think learning to play a musical instrument, for example, or to drive a car or to ride a bike, these are skills that really need some practical application in the learning process. They're a little bit more kinesthetic. Playing musical instrument might be a lot of auditory learning, but there are some motor skills, so that kinesthetic integration. Same with driving, actually all these, and so many more. So I think it's unfair to those who do have different ways of learning to discount their particular strengths in how they develop new skills and basically build their knowledge base. There are those who do acknowledge learning styles. The Wikipedia article is, as usual, a good starting point here. Not necessarily the end of your learning journey. Again, I hope everybody treats Wikipedia as the starting point. There's always so much more to explore. Unless that's your style, perhaps. Maybe you do learn everything from Wikipedia. Well, good for you then. Visual, audio, kinesthetic, and then reading are among the 4 core methods that are called out. But then there's others. So if you flip through that page, there's a bunch of other detail, different variations, different views on the topic, other variations of possibilities. And at the end of the day, any particular person may become interested and gather up new knowledge and skill through whatever means works for them for any particular area or topic. For example, I like to read about certain things, but I can read about programming. I do not necessarily learn more about programming for just having read about it. I do need to try it out, learn by doing. That's not necessarily kinesthetic, sort of, but really the notion of building something and then having the aha moment. Oh, okay, that's how I learned C. I think I've talked about that in a previous episode of at least one of my audio programs. I didn't know the C programming language when it was about 1990. So I got the K&R, the infamous Kerrigan and Ritchie, the C programming language, out of the library. It's an alarmingly thin book when you think about it. And I read through it, and then I sat down at an IBM PC XT and the Power C compiler way back then, before I became much more aware of open source tools and whatnot. And I commenced writing C code. So that's where I actually learned how it all worked, by doing. Now, our foundation is not a teaching nor training organization. We do not purport to be a coding camp or vocational school or anything of that sort. But for those who are interested in civic volunteerism and in community elevation, our initiatives may be interesting starting points for learning something new or continuing to develop some particular skill where the journey is joined by others of varying skill levels and interests. And the outcomes are practical and highly visible. So learning solo, learning with others, tackling some new area, completely new perhaps, or tuning up skills already held is an actual outcome, which can help for some who are motivated or perhaps become interested by practicality over academia. Learning in school is one thing, learning by doing. And by doing, I mean having some sort of a goal and perhaps others to collaborate with, and an outcome that others will see and that you might enjoy recognition and celebration of perhaps. That works for some people, and so that's where some of our opportunity lies, to be a part of the STEAM learning adventure. Now, I've said it many times, innovation takes many forms. I've talked about this many times as well, but so innovation takes many forms, and anyone can participate because innovation also has many facets to it. I'm not a coder, therefore I cannot innovate. That's simply not true. If you find an area that you are particularly interested in, or that is interested in you, perhaps, who knows what might come of it. And even though you are not a fill in the blank, something might call to you, something might appeal to you, and vice versa. And who knows, at some point you might say, oh, I came up with a new way to cook an egg, or to play some sort of a musical instrument, or whatever the case may be. So you never know. Being innovative is not a limitation, and it's not intended to be. All too often, there is a presumption, particularly when the civic tech label is attached to a civic volunteer effort. And there's nothing wrong with that. The label per se is fine, civic tech. It's a one way, it's a common label, but I think it sends the mind down a tech pathway that is not always appropriate. Whenever the effort is about writing some code, that's the implication, thus potentially pushing self-identified non-coders away. I kind of messed up that sentence, but when you say civic tech, you give the notion, you give the impression that, oh, okay, we're doing coding. I am not a coder, therefore I am not. The word welcome comes up. That's unfortunate. We had experienced this in our early days when we were still Code for Vegas Foundation, and someone, at least one, it wasn't a large number, but they actually asked if they would be even welcome to participate. More often it was more along the lines of, so this isn't for me, this is for coders, that kind of thing. Not true. To be honest, STEM sort of leans in a similar direction. So the addition of that A, which is doing a lot of work, takes that step towards clarity that there is more to all of this than just science, technology, engineering, and math, and that maybe the huge umbrella labeled art could figure into the bigger picture. You see what I did there, I think. Sure, STEM figures into a lot of things in these modern times. I think at some point somebody said, well, everything has technology at this point. It doesn't make sense to not understand technology. That's probably true. But co-creation means interacting with people, for example. And so language skills, communication skills, the ability to illustrate a notion and tell a story, these really do fall under something more like art. The same can be true for marketing, for crafting documentation, for sometimes a mechanical or a physical manifestation of something does have to have a certain aesthetic to it. So there's a little bit of an art aspect to it. Designing user experiences, designing user interfaces, there's a little bit of art to that, and understanding the human interface to all that STEM stuff. Of course, the upside of STEAM thinking is the possibility of crossover, so that there may be a little bit more thinking from the engineering personality when it comes to user experience. Like I said, maybe the technology person will think more about practicality from human interaction, or the art and science of something. Maybe the storyteller will delve a bit more into the details of how things work, and so on. So the STEAM is something. There's no magic in the spelling of the acronym. Does an acronym make a word? I can't remember. I could look that up, but I'll leave that to you. So is an acronym an actual word, or is it a pseudo word like NASA? NASA is not a word, but it is an acronym, I think. So STEAM is great for education, but education really should never end. So you can use it into your own future. These and all the other notions could be wins, to say the least, as far as personal and job skills development, which, while not a formal part of our plans, as I mentioned, are absolutely an informal side effect of what we hope to accomplish. So everyone should come away with a little bit more to their personal CV, their personal story, for having participated and collaborated, especially on things that you are interested in but may not be completely expert in. So onward and upward. I usually like to say Excelsior here, but I've had actual episodes titled Excelsior, I think, already. So onward and upward. Getting some attention from the non-coder crowd is still something of a challenge. Any mention of a hackathon immediately conjures images of laptops and pizza and staying awake into the wee hours and whatnot. Like innovation, hackathons can also take many forms. Hopefully we can broaden the view of what a hackathon is. Sometimes people use the term innovation sprint, and that might be appropriate sometimes. What a hackathon is or could be with the Smarter City Hackathon for 2026, which I did an entire episode about 3 weeks ago, something like this. If we can get some interest in participating, I think we will. As well, our efforts to build our cohort of civic volunteers with the civic volunteer winter upon us, which means interest has waned of late. There are too many other things going on in the world, I think, and it's not just in Vegas, but elsewhere as well. It's a huge challenge, but one that we can overcome with the FOMO effect, fear of missing out. I've talked about this previously, and that is our near-term path, which will be slow to impress, but will impress eventually. If there's only one person working on something, but all of the something is in the purview of the one person, it can all be done. It will just take a very long time. It would be nice to have 2, 3, 4 more. At some point, if we can get some lean in, great. If we can get the STEAM message out, that like STEAM, there is more to all of this than just STEM. Not everything is code. We just might be able to pull this off in a sustained way into the future. Innovation is one of those things. There's always room for more. In the meantime, it is a holiday week as I record this episode on Tuesday. Thanksgiving is the usual Thursday, and then Family Day in Nevada on Friday. Your mileage may vary depending on where you are. Usually it's Black Friday or just the day after Thanksgiving, something like that. Family Day in Nevada. We might just be able to pull this off, though. So who knows, with long weekends stacked up, maybe. So I'll leave it here and get back to work. Me, myself, and I have a couple of long to-do lists to get through. Maybe check a few items off even. Who knows? So I'll leave it there. Today was a brief episode, but that's fine. Again, holiday week. Hopefully you are making the most of it. Hopefully you are listening to this maybe after the holiday week. Who knows? But thank you for listening either way. And thank you for considering what we're up to and telling a friend, coming to one of our office hours meetups, which we'll get back on a normal schedule after the holidays. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you for listening as always again, and take care. Happy holidays. Be safe out there.